Okay, so these are a set of Weber 48 DCO SP2s. They're actually Italian ones, not Spanish ones, so earlier ones. And we've just refurbished these for one of our race team customers. So these are actually going onto a single-seater, very lightweight car. We've just completely stripped these carburetors. We've cleaned them inside and out, so they look as good as new. And like I said earlier, they're quite a rare carb because these are Italian made ones, so they're an earlier carburetor. We also fitted the later style bearings because the early ones are like an open bearing. They can become quite sticky and notchy. This is the old style one. As you can see, it's an open style bearing. This one's quite rusted and seized. I can't even rotate it that well. And this is quite common to see on the older style carburetors. Weber actually improved upon this with the later carburetors with a sealed bearing. So we can see we've got like a rubber or plastic cover around the bearing. So this protects it from the elements and debris in a lot better way than these were protected. Some of these actually had a leather seal over them. So when we replace these in service, these are a much better upgraded bearing. If you think about your throttle action, moving backwards and forwards, the bearings are at each end of the shaft, so that could become notchy, it could stick, may even cause an air leak and affect the performance of the carburetor. So we fit our own genuine Weber, but they're bespoke service kits. So we designed the components in here, and you can see inside there actually is about 65 parts, 65 parts that come in the kit. I think a standard service kit, which is more of a tune-up kit, you only get about 25 parts. So you can see the extent we go to. We change all the gaskets, every seal, even down to the body screws as well, because we want these carbs to look like they left the factory when we're finished with them. Some of the other things that are perishable and should be serviced. This is an example here. I don't know if I can put it on my hand, you can see it. This is one of the pump jet cover rubber seals, and you can see it's absolutely deteriorated. And that's supposed to form an airtight seal around the pump jet. It's not going to perform correctly if you've got parts that are failing like that on the carburetors. So realistically, you should be servicing your carburetors periodically. We see a lot of contaminants in the fuel. It could also be due to water ingress, or even the fact that modern fuels now will break down a lot quicker than the old leaded type fuels. So the unleaded, they've only really got about a 3-month shelf life. And we do see some pretty horrific things when the carburetors come into us. So what I've got is 2 samples of fuel. Generally the carbs should come into us empty, but sometimes there is a bit of fuel left over. So in this beaker, you can see here, it's got quite a horrible colour, probably camera friendly. We could say it's more like a tea colour. If I just bring it down to the camera, you can see also all the debris that was in the carburetor as well. So you can see there, that's likely to be rust from the fuel tank or any other contaminants that have ended up in the fuel tank. And if we compare, this is completely fresh fuel, just to give an indication to what your fuel should look like. So this one here, as you can see, pretty much clear with a slightly green tint to it. The other issue is we do see lots of examples where people have bought carburetors that have been serviced by someone else, a DIY service, if you like. They've bought them on eBay, allegedly serviced. They come to us and we find lots of problems with them. People not sure about how to put the carburetor back together, or maybe even putting the parts back in wrong. And it's not really something you should attempt yourself unless you're reasonably competent technically. Then, as I say to a lot of people, it's not a USB stick, it's not plug and play. There's quite a lot going on and a lot of parts, and you need to understand how it goes back together and how it comes apart, so you can service it, because you can damage it just taking it apart. To remove these shafts, obviously all their service life they've been moving backwards and forwards like this, and now we want to draw that shaft out one way or the other, so it's going in a completely different plane to how its action's been. So they can be quite stiff, and they're quite delicate in some ways. You know, if you start hammering on the end of it, you can damage the threads, you could bend the shaft, you can get it stuck. Okay, so they might look like they're finished now, and cosmetically and service wise they are, but the final step, what we always do with our carburetors, is we're going to take them out and we're going to put them on our engine test rig. That allows us to check the carburetors to make sure there's no fuel leaks. Also, we can set up the balance on the carburetors and make sure each individual choke is working correctly, so we know that when we return them to the customer, they are all serviced and functioning as they should. Everything connected, we've made fuel pressure, so we've got fuel in the float chamber, so it's going to be a little bit rough when we start it up because it's cold start and the carbs aren't balanced, mixture screws aren't set, so let's see if we can get it to fire up.